Dr. Kim Zadel is going to introduce tonight's speaker. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, I'm Kim Zadel, and she likes to put that doctor part in front, but anyway. This is Kiki Schreiber. She's a licensed family therapist with over 14 years experience working in the mental health field. As we discuss how to learn tools to manage emotions in kids, her experiences include client-centered services to adolescents, children and women, adults, couples, and homeless children and families. And she also works with OCD children and families and adults. She delivers trauma-informed care and utilizes evidence-based cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure response prevention, and solution-focused treatment to individuals and families dealing with depression, anxiety, trauma, and OCD, to name a few. And she is related to me through my husband. She's a distant cousin. So she's kind of, I consider her my adopted daughter because she's with my kids' age. And she was born and raised, well, she was born in England, but raised in the Netherlands. And then we discovered her about 3 years ago when she moved from Southern California to Washington. And we discovered we had a relatives close by. So yeah. She's, and just talking with her, she is fantastic in working with kids. So with that, Kiki, it's all yours.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Zadel, and everybody else. I'm so glad to be here with you guys and to share some of my experience and just passion working with kids and families, and especially everything that we know about dyslexia as well. Would you like for me to share my screen and then we can start with the presentation? I might move back and forth with my glasses on. So let me go ahead and, all right, sorry, bring that up. All right, that up there. All right, since you already did the introduction, we will go to the first slide. So today we're going to discuss some general considerations for working with kids and students who have dyslexia, anxiety, and school as well. We're going to talk about some specific techniques and coping skills, and then also recognizing when it's helpful to get extra support from a mental health professional as well. And so please, if you have any questions, go ahead and just, interrupt, or you can put it in the chat and then we can get to it later on. All right, let's look at the first one. So we definitely know, and I put the little mask on there because we are still dealing with different side effects from COVID, and especially for our kids in school. We definitely know it's been very impactful how it affects them and how stress impacts our emotions and all levels of society, but also at home and at school as well. And so I like this little example here that often right now we notice people are just stressed, and it comes out in behavior, it comes out in how we talk to one another, it comes out, attitude, facial expressions when we don't have the mask on. And so sometimes we want to help and remind ourselves, what's happening, and we can kind of share that with others. I do like this quote from Bessel van der Kolk, and he talks about that trauma comes as a reaction, not as a memory. Especially, we do know that COVID is a level of trauma for all of us. So that's why it comes as a reaction often in behavior. We see that in our kids. We see that in behavior through anxiety, and especially at the different levels where we're at. So let's look at this for a minute. So when we look at this, what are some symptoms that you recognize in your child? Do you recognize upset stomach? Yeah, go ahead.
Upset stomach has been an ongoing thing since first grade.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For sure. Headaches, fatigue, exhaustion, sensory overload, restless legs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, all those. And so I did a talk with a nurses association 2 years ago, and all of them said the first one is the upset stomach. And so often that'll present itself before that we even go to school often, right? In the morning routine, maybe running to the bathroom. But so these are symptoms for our physical health, but also symptoms for our mental health. Because if we look at these symptoms, I can also let you know that almost all these symptoms are attributed to depression, anxiety, trauma. So all of them are interconnected. So often it's very hard to separate. Okay, when are we actually truly having, a stomach issues or cramps or, or something else or a headache? As we know, school is difficult for kids nowadays, right? And then on top of that, all your kids are struggling with an extra whammy, which is the dyslexia. That brings for its own level of discomfort, yet again, then symptoms and what the body does. So I just want you to kind of be aware when you recognize that in your child, because sometimes we're like, oh, you're okay, right? And it's helpful when we recognize what it could be. So if we look at that, then anxiety in school, what does that look like for our kiddos? So yet again, physical complaints. So we could also see meltdowns at home. We can see meltdowns in the morning routine. I see that most often with the kids getting dressed, having sensory issues with the clothes that they put on, then having the meltdowns. I don't want to put on these jeans, or my top is too loose, or just refusing anything that you try to do, or to try to calm them down, refusal to go to school, or having increased absences, easily distracted, or the mind goes blank. That's definitely something with anxiety. Since with their dyslexia, they already have to spend more time and effort focusing. So the easily distracted and lack of concentration is really going to impact what the brain is doing in taking in all the information. So they might miss different instructions, what to do, how to take a test, and things like that as well. And they might also miss some instructions that you're giving them in the morning as well, right? So then often as a parent, sometimes we can kind of get upset. So instead you can ask them perhaps, hey, can you maybe repeat back? What did I just ask you to do, right? Because that's one way that you can hear, okay, did they hear my instructions? And if they say something completely wrong, right, instead of going, well, this is what I said, just keep on breathing, and then you repeat the instruction again. And you might want to break it down in smaller sizes for them, right? So this is the first instruction. Hey, why don't you come and tell me when you're done with making your bed? And then you can give them the next instruction as well. We do also know that they can get quiet, they can withdraw in behavior or not want to spend time with their friends, right? Sometimes also being clingy, right? When you do have to drop them off at school, especially the first few weeks, that's really hard. So you definitely kind of want to have a routine in place before you go back to school as well. And then outbursts or behavior issues in class. Sometimes if you would get a call from school, you're like, wait, but my kid doesn't do that, right? So you might be kind of overwhelmed, but all of it is connected. And a big one is also that they don't want to be called up on in class, fear of making mistakes. So there's just so many different levels in that. So I bring this to your attention just to see how all this can be interrelated and connected for you to be able to see a full picture of what could be happening for them. All right, do you guys have any questions before I move on to this one? Okay. All right, so let's take a look at this. So if we look at dyslexia and anxiety at school, but that also means it could be at home or anywhere else, of course, it often goes hand in hand. So that's why we're going to discuss both of them today. All right, so this was the kids section that I had, but I still want to kind of go through it together. So if you look at these two explosions, which one do you think would be the most fun for a kid to watch?
Definitely the exploding Coca-Cola bottle.
Definitely, right?
And that's
All right.
even true for your high school kids, because when they do that experiment, my students would always, they'd hear about it and they'd run to the windows and watch it instead of doing my class.
Yep, it's a super fun one. And I put it there because it's the opposite when emotions will come out of nowhere. When you least expect it, when you think everything is going well, right? The same with how I could imagine that things are for them in the classroom, right? They might be able to kind of go along and suddenly out of nowhere, they might kind of get confused with what words are being said if they have to read out loud, right? Out of nowhere, these emotions come on the inside, right? That definitely the brain isn't working and giving them the information. So it always comes, this is how we can see it from the outside. And of course, on the inside, we don't see it, but it's a similar experience for our kids. And then, and the other one, what is it often that the school system does, or teachers, right? We're going to now try to break this down and close it right away, right? Instead of kind of seeing what's happening. So that's where for parents, you guys are so important to advocate for your
Recording
kids.
in progress.
And to oh, okay. There's like an echo. So often when we see in families that they will not try to figure out what's happening. So that's where you can definitely advocate for your kids. So I kind of have this visual here, so you can also sometimes explain that to parents, to teachers, right? And to other parents as well, what's happening. All right, so this is the easiest way that I usually teach about emotions for kids. And I think the youngest that I've taught, I think is 4, right? So we have 4 of the basic emotions: happy, angry, scared, and sad. And as we start looking at these different emotions, it's helpful for kids to learn what the emotions are and to be able to name them, because that's the foundation for their emotional resilience and for their emotional literacy, that they're able to verbalize what they're experiencing, right? If you would ask a kiddo who, I don't know, Robin, give me an example. What is something that would make your boys happy?
To make them happy,
Hmm?
we are going motorcycle riding.
Ooh, yes, that would definitely be happy, right? So what would you then recognize on their faces, right? They're excited, they're going to be kind of loud, they're going to be, you know, kind of boisterous, being boys, right? They're going to kind of be roughhousing maybe with each other, right? So what would happen if you would suddenly say, okay, boys, we're not going? You would also see that right away, right? You might see like anger, like, what? You know, the facial expressions, and now you might definitely see some roughhousing, that they're not happy, maybe pushing each other, right? So kids are always showing what they're experiencing, but seldom do we encourage them to speak the words of the emotion. So we want to help them to recognize what the words are and to teach them to start saying what those words and emotions are. So if we look at these 4 basic emotions, when kids are able to recognize and verbalize these 4 basic emotions, they can do any of the more complex emotions. So let me go to the next one. So usually how I teach it to kids is it's the same way that we learn about the primary colors. So we have the 4 basic emotions, the same with the primary colors, right? We have and I'm glad that the colors are always on here because I always forget what they are: red, yellow, and blue. And as we mix them, right, we have the beautiful colors of the rainbow. So it's the same thing with our emotions. If we build happy and sad, I would say confusion can come from there, maybe anxiety, because that's kind of overwhelming to have both of those, right? And so this is a overwhelming picture, but I have it there on purpose, because if we look at the basic ones, so this picture has 6 basic ones, but if we look at the basic ones that we talked about, we add a primary and a primary emotion, and then we have a complex emotion. So for example, here we have anger and sadness and fear, and as that emotion can be betrayal. So that's sometimes difficult for kids to understand later on. So that's why we really want to start with the foundational emotions, teach them what that looks like, how they can recognize it in themselves, and how they can recognize it in someone else. And then afterwards, when they become, you know, middle school and high school and then college and older, then they're able to recognize what that is, right? What these different ones are. So for example, if we look at the different varieties and complexity. Yeah, I guess so. Complex levels of emotions for angry. If it talks about annoyed, so it's angry, and I would say disappointment is like a level of frustration, right? Another level on top of that could be annoyed, could be judgmental, right? There's so many different, and actually I have a bigger one that I sometimes give to my adults, like, okay, what are you feeling, when they don't know what they're feeling. There's so many more than just this little picture, but you want to just focus on the main basic primary ones to help them to figure out the difference between them and how they feel about them. So let's, oh, that's not the one I wanted. Okay, so for kids, we want to model that for our kids. So let me go back to this one. So we want to usually ask them, hey, you know what? I see that you're holding your fists like when you're angry. I don't know why I suddenly look dark. I hope you can still see me. But like, I see that you're holding your fists, and I see that your face, that you're kind of scrounging, right? And I can hear in your voice that your voice has changed, you know? I think you look angry or you look upset, right? And then have them say, yes, I'm angry. And then you can invite, can you tell me what you're angry about, right? Because often we start filling in the blanks for them and they might not know what to do with that. So let's look at some of these. So these are some very specific coping skills to use with anxiety when they are feeling different emotional reactivity. So for kids, it's vital and very important to validate their experience, which is to accept and to feel them. Doesn't mean they have to stay there, but just for them to be able to recognize it, because often it feels uncomfortable, especially with anxiety. It's overwhelming. So what do? We avoid. That's the first thing we do with any kind of mental health or anything that we don't know or feel uncomfortable with. We avoid. We avoid the feelings. We avoid maybe dealing with it, right? Or addressing it, maybe with a sibling or with you or at school, right? We want to look at the intensity of the emotions. So kids do very well with a scaling of 0 to 10. You can do a feelings thermometer. You can use different emojis on the fridge. And Robin and I, before, we were kind of talking about a few weeks before school. And so she was talking about kind of counting out the days. And so I said, well, you can go to the dollar store and maybe get some stickers with emojis that her sons can put on the calendar, how he feels about it. So we can expect, if he's feeling very anxious and doesn't want to go to school yet, that those intensity of emotions are going to go up. So then you can ask for him to figure out how to help his emotions. All right, I'm going to give you a different pack of emoji stickers. You know, how would you like to feel instead? Or what do you think could be helpful to feel something else, right? Because now you want to help them to be invested in finding a change. And they might say, no, I just don't want to feel anything else. All right, then you've gotten enough information right there, right? And that's still validating their experience. No, I'm upset right now and I'm anxious about school, and that's where I'm at, right? Instead of, for us, we want to do the best for our kids and not have them be overwhelmed, but sometimes that's just where both of us, you know, are at, right? You might be feeling the same kind of anxiety as well. And that's helpful to validate for them as well. Like, you know what, mom's going to put the stickers up as well. So let's see, for all of us, for the whole family, what is that going to look, how are we all feeling? And then each day you can kind of look at the different stickers. Am I still feeling that way? You know, no, actually it's changed. Oh, okay. So I'd be like, oh, what's the difference? What's helped? Right, to help them kind of figure that out. Then just some general things that are helpful to do is exercise for their body to be moving, progressive muscle relaxation. So calming and breathing is always helpful, because we know, especially when we're anxious, the brain, different parts of the brain will kind of stop breathing in a normal rate. We'll do more of the shallow breathing, right? That doesn't help the body or our ability to think either. So we definitely want to calm that down, help bring the amygdala down from its overreactivity. Sometimes distraction is helpful to change the negative thoughts. But I want you to be mindful of that, because sometimes it's helpful to do a planned shift when there's negative emotions, to do an activity and then to kind of come back to what was happening. But if it's your go-to, then you're yet again not validating their experience and their emotions as well. So you want to kind of find a fine balance between that as well. And then mindfulness is one of the most helpful things with kids. It's for them to recognize what's happening in this present moment. So if we're thinking about school 2 weeks from now, right? What are we feeling today, right? So if I'm noticing I'm thinking about what's happening 2 weeks from now, okay, is that helping me today? No, probably not. Okay, right? And maybe you can kind of create a worry box, put some emotions in there. Okay, let's put it there and we can figure out tomorrow if we're feeling, the same way or a different emotion. But we do want to allow that emotion to be there and just recognize on right now. So one of my favorite things with clients in session is to give an M. And we're just going to sit there now. We're just going to suck it, and we're going to just feel this feeling, whatever it is, right? And as the M&M, when it's gone, probably ask for more. But then I'd ask them like, okay, so what did you learn? What did you learn? What your body is doing and what your brain was doing? And that just gives them. Usually, I hear things like, "Oh, I got calm pretty quick," or "I know that I could be calm." And I know I can just, sit there. It was annoying at first. I didn't like it, but it got a little bit better, right? So now you're building that resilience for themselves with a fun kind of a candy thing like an M&M. Do you guys have any questions on that one?
I like the M&M. I'm going to do that.
It's my favorite, so that's why I started using that. But you can do Skittles or whichever. Yeah, I like it because it takes a while for them to melt in your mouth. So, all right. Then there's 2 different ways that we can help kids calm down with anxiety. So one is the flower, and the other one is the grounding experience. So the flower is breathing. So for young kids, so let me come a little closer. So I would say, smell the flower and then blow out the candle. Number 1, it's fun to do. So I would do that with everybody. All right, smell the flower. And sometimes they'll go, okay, like, no. This is a really nice smelly flower. No. You got to take it in. So smell it in as long as you can. All right, let me hear you. How do you blow out the candle? Right. Okay, awesome. Let's do it one more time. All right, smell that flower. All right, blow the candle. If they don't want to do that one, then I use the brownie one. All right, what happens when you make brownies and you take the pan of brownies out of the oven? And you don't have oven mitts on. You're going to burn your hands, right? And you might have them, you take them out. And you're like, okay, so now I'm going to cut the pan with brownies. And I want the corner one. I like that one the best. I take it out. And if I eat the brownie right away, what happens? I'm going to burn my mouth. So I'm going to take the brownie and I have to blow on it. But I really want to bite it while it's still hot. So I'm going to blow on it again. And now I'm going to take my bite. Oh, that was so good. It's still kind of hot, so I'm still going to blow on it. Right. So that's another way. I just keep on using different creativity, but it teaches them just by doing breathing, something that calms it down. That's the part of the brain that helps calms down the amygdala. And I've tested in session 5 times is the minimum that almost all kids need. You'll notice when they aren't able to take feedback, or if they kind of aren't thinking, they'll just notice right away. You just notice them looking around like, hey, what are we doing? Or what can we do? So the same thing with grounding. Grounding is the other one. If you notice that the breathing isn't working, because then the amygdala is still kind of firing, then you want to help them to kind of get out of their head and out of their feelings and look at things around them. So here, sometimes I find this one kind of overwhelming because I forget what all the senses are. I'm just being honest. So I'll just say, hey, tell me 5 big things that you see in the room. So for example, here in my room, I would say I'd see a desk, I see a computer, I see a couch behind me, I see a bookcase, and I see a lamp. Okay, awesome. Tell me 4 colors that you see. Okay, I see white, I see green, whatever that reddish color is, and I see purple. All right, awesome. So tell me 3 textures that you can feel. So because I'm sitting on a chair, I feel my chair. I feel my desk is kind of hard, but kind of, I don't know, kind of yeah, whatever, I can't think of the word. And my water bottle, yeah, that's definitely kind of hard. I'm like, okay, so now I'm going to help them to look at something smaller. All right, tell me 2 smaller items that you see. All right, now they have to look, because now they're breathing normal, because now they're looking. Okay, I see a pen, and I don't know, I see a binder. Okay, perfect. So now I'm going to make them look even closer. Okay, can you see something on a calendar or somewhere and read it to me? And I know that might be hard with dyslexia. So I would say, what is something that you notice that you kind of have to squint at? And so it could be, I don't know, I see this little pen. It's got a little fuzzy face person on the top, right? And you're like, oh, what are all the details that you see on this fuzzy? I'm like, well, he has a little, whatever you call that, medical thing. He's got a funny face. He's got a little smile on there. You're just making them look at something very intense. And by that time, their body is calm, their brain is calm, and now they can usually do the next thing, whatever activity that you're doing. And I can imagine, especially if you're doing homework, if their body and brain is getting overwhelmed, okay, then try one of these 2 exercises and see if we can now return to a calm, and then we can return doing the homework again. This is a fun one that I usually use in session, but you can make one up for when they come home from school. And it's helpful if they kind of figure out this with you instead of you kind of filling it out for them, right? You can have the different, and they're free at, Home Depot or whatever. And on each line, like the pink one can be school, the next one can be recess, lunchroom, right? And then you can kind of write down the different colors, what they're feeling. And it helps them to brainstorm, to think about the day, and then perhaps also brainstorm how they want the next day to be as well with their friends. This one, remember I can't remember what it was in English. You had the little, help me out. Yeah, I don't know what you call that.
I can't recall what it's called either, but you fold the paper and you do the little.
Yes.
Yeah.
You fold it up. So this is an example that I found years ago. And so this is kind of, they can fill in for themselves also, yet again. So each of them are the same. You have feelings and you have coping skills and you have some of the main emotions as well. So it's helpful for kids if you talk about emotions and anxiety in a fun way, because then they'll do anything with you. So here, some of them talks about yellow is anxious, excited, mad, worried. Coping skills can be deep breathing, self-talk, listening to music. The red is usually always anger for kids. The coping skills can be pushing anger into a wall, deep breathing, or talk to an adult, or have a stress ball to kind of get rid of it. The green one is also a stress ball, inner talk, and read or sit on a ball. And then the purple one, take a walk, have some fresh air, drink some water, or do some jumping jacks. So they can come up with whatever they would like to do. And this is something that can change, every time. It doesn't have to be the same one. Just something, something easy for them to use. Or I use Uno. And as you play Uno, you can have them, every time you change a color, you have the 4 different emotions and you determine what each color is, and then just ask them to talk about that emotion. And kids do really well sharing about that. You're also having fun playing a game, or the same when you do trouble, right? If you kick someone off, as you can say, okay, every time you throw a 2, you have to share about a feeling or something at school. How was something that you liked at school today or you didn't like at school today? And then for the really younger kids, it's helpful just to have a sheet, something like this, and then you can ask them to color it in, and then you can ask them, how are you feeling? Where do you feel that in your body, right? And kids can usually tell you how they're feeling it in their body, right? If I'm happy, I feel that on my face, right? Or angry, I feel that on my fists. And anxiety could be, I feel that in my stomach. Or you can do something like this. This one, you can kind of make one up like this. You can fill in when I feel mad, I need to do this, or I'm going to say this. And then, so that's helpful for you as a parent to know what is something that they feel that they can need when they have an emotion and a feeling like this. What do they need from you? Because sometimes we think they need something and they might need something completely different, right? So you can fill in when I feel mad, I need to, or sad or scared, or you can use other emotions as well. There's different ways just to help kids to start talking about their emotions. And I have this as a handout as well. So these are some questions that you can ask on the first day of school. Sometimes asking a lot of questions is also overwhelming. So I just want you to be cognizant of that. I won't ask all those questions. I would probably, let me stop sharing for a second. Whoops. So this is two things that I used to have in my office when I wasn't working from home. So I have the family fun jar, and I have different little colored piece of papers because colors are fun. Or I have a blessings jar and with different ones in there. And then I had another one for my adults, a date jar, but you can make up whatever. And this is just something I made myself. So for the family fun jar, if I open it up, it says, draw a picture and mail it to a friend or family member. So you can do the same thing with every day. You can have emotions in here. So at the end of the day, either you can put emotions in there, or you can put one of the questions in there that each kid, takes two of them out and they get to answer it. And if they don't like it, they can put it back and do another one. You can just have an agreement. Let's do two before dinner or after dinner when you get home. Like this one says, learn a magic trick. So you can be as creative as you want to, but little things like this work really well for kids. If you put it in a fun kind of a thing, and they have a little bit more of a control. Nope, don't want to answer that. All right. Can you choose another one? Because now they're yet again showing you their validation of their emotions and what they're willing to talk about or not. All right, all right, so that's kind of some of the things that I had specifically. How are we doing on time, Kim?
We're 40 minutes in, so we're doing good.
Okay. All right, so now we have some specific ones for the parents. So so now we're going to be kind of specific. How do you deal with different ranges in emotions, and how do we teach emotional regulation? Sometimes we take it for granted that we know how to deal with our emotions as adults, right? Like Kim said, I've been doing this for many years. I started working in a residential home 20 years ago. I had no idea how to help the kids there with emotional regulation. I didn't even know what to do with my emotions sometimes, right? But emotional regulation is being able to handle a range of emotions. So if we look at the different emojis on here, it ranges from happy to not happy, right? That's what emotional regulation is. Because nowadays we have so many different terms for it, but it's learning to know, what do I do when I'm feeling different emotions? And how do you, as a parent, deal with that as well? All right, so not all hurts are the same size. So being upset that I stepped in some dog poo, kids always like that, is not the same as my best friend, betraying me, or someone dying, or that my friends don't want to talk to me anymore, right? It's not the same, right? How about winning a game of Uno? Is that the same as graduating from school? Right? They're both happy occasions, but it kind of depends where you're at, right? For some kids who hate school, graduating, being done from school is going to be overexcited, like, I don't ever have to go back, right? And so then winning a game of Uno, oh well, that was Uno, right? So it's different for each kid what the different emotional aspects are going to be as well. So we know with emotional regulation that feelings are not the same, and the size of how it affects us is not the same either, right? We know that happy is a different feeling than sad, right? Anxiety is a different feeling than overwhelm. Often we say overwhelm, but it's such a big feeling anxious that I'm worried about school. Okay, that helps a little bit more, right? Instead of I'm just overwhelmed. I still don't know what that means. What does that mean, right? But it could all feel the same way. So we want to help them to kind of separate that, right? And often our kids, because we know avoidance is the first thing we do, right? Don't want to think about it. I'm just going to push it away. I'm just going to avoid and do something else. Often they don't know how to deal with their emotions then, because sometimes it's so overwhelming. I don't know what to do with that as well. So that's where we come in, and we need to model that for our kids. So how do we do that? There's some very specific steps. So first, we want to recognize the emotions. So this is where modeling for your kids, it comes in. So if you notice that they're not able to recognize on someone's face when someone else is angry, that they are ignoring that, you might want to help them. You know, when I get angry, I go like this. And I start saying like, I don't care, I don't want to, right? I raise my voice. So you kind of want to model that for them. And then I turn around, what do you do when you're angry? What do you do when you're sad, right? Now I'm inviting them. So now I'm being quiet. I'm inviting them to show me, what does it look like for you? They'll be able to show you, right? Because we don't recognize things that we don't know, right? We first have to know what it is before we're able to talk about it and recognize it in ourselves and in others as well. And often we forget as parents that we have to teach this part of the emotions, because everything else when they were younger, you taught them, right? Taught them how to walk, taught them how to do what else? Sit, stand, put on their socks, right? All these different things we've taught, and potty training, how not to do certain things and go somewhere else, right? But somehow we've ignored the emotion. So this is the same aspect as well. So when we learn a new concept, we start recognizing it everywhere, don't we? When you notice that your child was diagnosed with dyslexia, I can imagine you start seeing that, recognizing it anywhere that you went, right? It's the same with the emotions for ourselves and our kids. So like I said, we have to give words to explain the emotions, and we want to talk about our emotions in simple and concrete ways that our kids can understand. And the easiest way for them to understand it is to describe what they see. So now I'm not just showing, I'm describing it. And now I'm using different tools like the emojis, right? And then asking for their feedback, what it is like for them. Because when they can repeat back what it's like for them, that's when you know that they've made that connection and understanding as well. So what are some words for emotions? So if we don't know how to talk about our emotions, usually they kind of go into our body, don't they? So I find it helpful to have emojis like this, maybe on the fridge, right? So they can kind of figure out what they're feeling. Because sometimes kids stay stuck with a few feelings that everything made me mad. There's different levels of mad, right? There's different levels of, because if we look at this face, rejection, if someone stopped talking to me at school, that feels really big, right? Maybe mad that so-and-so won't talk to me anymore. But it's kind of like I'm mad and sad because I want to talk to my friend, right? But I'm confused because I don't know why they won't talk to me. So now as we're talking, whoa, there's a lot of different emotions that suddenly came up, right? And they might just think, oh, no, I'm mad at Susie. She won't talk to me anymore. So you kind of want to become a detective and kind of start asking them some things as well. All right, so here you can start asking them about the size of the emotions. So you can ask, how sad are you? So I like using either, like I said before, the numbers, or you can use small, medium, large, like for the clothes size, or you can use small, medium, large, or extra large, like their Happy Meal size. They know what that looks like, right? Whatever size they recognize. So you want to use that for all the different emotions. All right, how excited are you? Right? A little? or a lot? Are you really excited? Show me what that looks like, right? And so the same thing about school. How are you feeling about starting school? I don't like it. Okay, tell me more. I don't know. I'm just anxious. Okay. So are you a little bit anxious or are you a lot anxious? Oh, I'm a lot anxious. You're like, okay, what does that feel like? I don't know. Mom, you're being annoying. Well, that's okay. So where do you feel a lot in your body? In my head. Okay. Where else? In my stomach. All right, don't want to talk to you. I'm going to go play. I let them go play, right? Later on when they come back, they want to talk a little bit more. It's helpful to do it in small spurts, right? To wait until they're ready to kind of talk about it. So we explain the emotions by modeling it. We use the different sizes to break it down, and we explain emotions in a way that's understood. So let's look what this looks like every day and how you can help them with validating and now modeling for them what you see. So if you see this kiddo, all right, you can ask them, how are you feeling, right? Sometimes what do we do as adults? We start putting in the words already, don't we? So if we say, are you angry? And leave it at that, right? They might be like, oh, yeah. So now I can describe, I can see that you're angry because your hands are in fists. And that happens a lot when people get angry. I can see it on your face, because your face is like this, right? And then you can kind of ask them, how big are you? Is this emotion? How big is your angry, right? And then sometimes I ask them, okay, do you want to make it smaller? But we'll get to that in a minute. So the same thing about being sad. So this could be, I see that you're sitting alone or hunched over, that's something that I do when I'm sad. Or for teachers, that could be, hey, I see that you're sitting alone in the lunchroom, right? And some of your friends are over there. And so I usually go and sit by myself, when I don't want to talk to someone. So I would invite them, can you tell me how you're feeling? So they might say, oh, I just don't want to talk to them. Okay, all right. Can you tell me what that feels like? Because I'm not easily going to let go. I'm going to keep on asking in different ways, right? I'm going to circle around until I kind of get them to open up a little bit. And sometimes it takes a few questions. I don't know, I'm just sad, or I'm angry, or I don't want to sit with them. Can you tell me why you don't want to sit with them? Right? They should keep on asking in different ways. All right, so we use to describe them. We give them different sizes. And kids actually do really well on a scaling from 1 to 10. 10 is the highest ever. And I usually exaggerate, ever in your life. And then 1 is like, no big deal. And surprisingly, almost all kids, they just go with a number and it's just instinct. And so I've just learned with experience when they give like, I don't know, 7 or 8, in my mind, I always go with 8, because that's sometimes part of, I don't know if I want to give it a high number. Sometimes kids kind of lowball it, right? And we explain our rights, and we want to model that. So this quote has been in my office for the last 5 years. The children learn to regulate their thoughts, feelings, behavior, and emotion by watching and responding to adults' self-regulation. So this is where sometimes they see the good in us and also the bad from us, right? And they learn both of it. So that's why kids are always watching, and they're always listening and hearing what we say. All right, so sometimes it's helpful just to pick one of these to kind of start teaching them about their emotions, right? To kind of explain some different things, talk to them how they feel, the size of it. It's not helpful to do all of it at once, but just start with one of them and just start teaching them little by little. And sometimes it's helpful when you come back from a hard day and you picked them up from school and you're a little bit irritated, and you can let them know, Mom had a hard day. Mom is feeling kind of medium with being tired, right? So maybe you guys can go and play, and then we'll see each other in a half an hour or so. Because now you're also modeling that sometimes I need some time by myself, right? To kind of calm down, just like you want to go to your room sometimes when you need some space as well. And it's okay to share that with them. So I just wanted to have a few slides also about anxiety as well. So anxiety is usually generalized feeling, and it definitely creates the level of unease and uncertainty. But it's helpful to remind kids that dealing with uncertainty and unease, that it's not the same as truth, that it's not a way that's going to prevent part of their experience. Just because we have thoughts doesn't mean that they're going to happen. Those are just thoughts, right? So if we're worried about the first day of school, we're just worried because it hasn't happened yet. So we don't know what it's going to look like, right? What to expect. But that doesn't mean I have to have a horrible day, the first day of school, right? So you can kind of help them with that. And they might want to ask for uncertainty, because that's usually what kids do. Like, well, how do I know it's not going to be a bad day? Like, well, can you tell me for sure that's not going to be a bad day? And you kind of want to help them with that. You know what? I don't know. It might be a good day. It might not be a good day. But you know what? We're going to work on trying to make it the best day. And if it's not, that's okay. But if you're going to say, oh, no, buddy, I know for sure it's going to be the best day. Then what happens then when they come back? See, I told you it's going to be a bad day. And you said, that it's like, so yet again, we just want to accept them where they're at. If they think they're going to have a bad day, I might want to kind of challenge them, because a negative thought usually does influence the emotions as well. So I want to ask them, okay, is there something that is going to be helpful for you to not feel, this way for the first day? And so just wanted you to know that anxiety is the most common problem for kids. They will avoid situations because it causes them to feel nervous in their body, and that creates a negative thought as well. And as the solution isn't found, they'll continue worrying about it as well. But it just feels in the moment, if I avoid it, it just feels better, right? Because now I don't have to deal with it. So potentially going to school, I don't have to do that. Or if I have to now suddenly read out loud, no, what if I would mess up? What if I can't, recognize the letters and the words, right? Can help and remind them, okay, let's take a breath and try that again. And facing the fears is the key to reducing anxiety. And it builds confidence that they can say to themselves, I was able to handle it, and I now feel stronger. So those are definitely some quotes that I've heard from clients. And so these are just from some of our assessments that we do in mental health. These are different categories of anxiety, what it looks like. So our thoughts are unhelpful. They might be unrealistic. They might focus on fears, and they might not be accurate about the fears. There are definitely worries about how things are going to go, what to expect, or not knowing what to expect. Often the thoughts are irrational. They can be exaggerated as well. And so we definitely talked about some of the feelings already, how it comes out physically, but it can look at irritation, tension, fear, panic, nervousness, and then behavior. We can see, like we looked at before, withdrawal, clinginess, refusal to be separated from a parent. Could be certain rituals before they do certain things, or it could be regression. If they were sleeping really well and they go to school and things are happening there, they might wet their beds at night. They might suddenly have more of a sleep disturbance as well. So those are all connected together. And so here it's helpful to recognize what the cycle of anxiety looks like. So you have a worry or a panic that starts. We automatically do the avoidance without even recognizing it, which feels like a temporary relief. But it always brings the cycle back, that now the original worry comes back in again. I don't feel what I did before helps, and now it increases the cycle of worry. So the same thing with school, for example, or with their abilities to either like take a test or to do the reading, that the dyslexia will come back. And it's helpful to break the cycle where the avoidance is, so the cycle doesn't even have the chance of going up and then coming down again. So these are some very specific things that we teach in cognitive behavioral therapy when we work with kids and families. We have a triangle like this that we know that what we think affects how we act and feel. What we do affects how we think and feel, and what we feel affects how we think and do. So I like that it's in the triangle, because usually we would say in CBT that the thought starts it all off, but sometimes it's hard to figure out what the original thought is. Sometimes we might first identify that something is going on because we see the behavior, right? Or kids are able to verbalize what the emotion is. So because that's why I like that it's a triangle, because then we can also walk backwards and figure out what the original thought is that might have started the negative thinking as well. And we do know that all of them are connected, and it drives our feelings and our thoughts. So with kids, I call them ants. So we call them automatic negative thoughts. So we call them about ants. So what are some ants that you have running around in your head? And so this little kiddo has a thought of, I'm stupid, I feel sad and mad. So the behavior is that they yell at their friends, maybe at recess or something, right? And it could be something as simple as that. Or little Johnny at school didn't want to, share the scissors with me. It could be something very small, right? But it feels big for our kids when they're really young. So it's the same thing. Avoidance can often, it takes away their experiences of doing things with other kids, right? To engage in recess, to play with friends. So it's really helpful to figure out when things are happening early on and when it starts stressing their life and really starts impacting them with social time with kids, playtime with kids. Because sometimes we're like, oh, it's okay. But if you start seeing big changes, that would be helpful to start recognizing and perhaps ask the school and the teacher if they're seeing the same changes as well. All right, so why is emotional regulation important? So do you remember some of the games that we used to play, at least when we were younger, like Mother May I, Red Rover, like stoplights? Remember those? We kind of stopped doing those, didn't we? Now we watch video games, right? We might be on our tablets. So I really want you to play different games like that again. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because that part of the brain that we stop and do things, it's the same part of the brain that helps us with our emotions. So a fun thing that I use with kids in session, I might turn the lights down and I have some music on my iPhone. And I'm like, all right, I want you to dance on this music. Let's dance around. All right. And I tell them, okay, this is the freeze game. Okay. So when I freeze the music, I want you to freeze. And then freeze as long as you can, as exaggerated as you make. So then you have some kind of fun. I have a fun playlist on there and I freeze it and they're like frozen and you see them that they're starting to move and I'm like, oh, no, can you hold on? No, stay a little bit longer, right? So it's the same part of the brain that helps with that emotional regulation and that impulse control. Can I hold it? Can I hold it? All right, and when I really see them wiggling, if I've tried to push it maybe 2-3 times, then I put on the music again and do it again. And then I might play the music a little bit longer and then, okay, can you hold on just as long as you heard the music, right? So I keep on going back and forth because then they're like, all right, we're just jumping around, we're listening, singing to music, stop again. So that's a natural way that you can kind of teach that. You can do it with all your kiddos, right? Or if you're a teacher, you can do that with all the kids. Because you can't always do, Red Rover and all those games, but you can help start teaching their body and their brain how to be able to improve that self-control.
Yeah, and Kiki, going along with this, the building blocks of learning, those are the emotions, the behavior, the self-regulation, the resilience. Those are what we call the foundations. And if the kids can't handle that, forget the rest of it. So they're not going to be able to learn how to read and do other things. So what you're saying just fits right into what we're learning about dyslexia.
Oh, well, perfect. Yay.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I've just learned, because I love working with kids and family, if I make it fun, I can teach them any of these skills. Even when I think, oh, my kid is too old. Nope. Then figure out what they like to do. So if they like to do Minecraft, then I just might create something that looks like Minecraft. And now, okay, let's just kind of run around in the house or do something, right? I'm going to hide your Minecraft somewhere. And then when you think you found it, oh, I don't know where this music comes on. And I might just choose, a music that's similar to the game or whatever. And believe it or not, during COVID, I used to sit in my living room because that's where the AC was. I would kind of do, the stoplight in running towards the computer, but every time I go, oh, stop, right? And the kids would do it even on the computer with me. So don't think you're limited. If the kids have to go back to school and the virtual learning and all that stuff, you can do all that still, even virtual. I've been doing it for almost 2 years now virtually, and it works. So, and have fun with it. Have fun with your kids, Let's see. So these are some things that we know that kids with good regulation, emotional regulation, that they're able to experience and express a range of emotions. We know that they're able to adjust to transition and new situations. And that's the big thing right now, isn't it? There have been so many changes in our kiddos at home, in society, at school, right? And that's often when we start seeing that anxiety, when we have these adjustments between the transition and the situations. So if they're able to verbalize what that feels like, you can help them to continue it, because we can't take away, right, the experiences and the transitions of new situations. And life is one thing that we know, it's always changing, right? And kids want certainty. So I hate to break it to you, but you can't give them certainty. We try and we fail, and that's often where kids go like, you always do this to me, right? But sometimes it's helpful to teach them, you know what? Sometimes we don't know. Okay, can we just sit with, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. That's better than now I'm going to tell you it's going to be okay, right? That's the first thing we do, because we want them to feel better. We don't want to see that look on their face. We also know that they are able to engage in behaviors in response to emotional situations. We also know that their tolerance changes towards frustration and dealing with challenges. So do you see this in the students? And I forgot to add, or the kids, right? Do you see these different things in your kids and the students? So let's look at, what does it look like when we don't have, when we have poor emotional regulation skills? We have a limited range of the emotions, right? We're kind of stuck in certain emotions, and often they kind of come out of nowhere. They kind of have these outbursts, right, with negative emotions. We see that they're not able to control them. They have difficulty with coping with stressful situations, those transition times, right? We definitely see show of aggression or egocentric behavior depending on their ages. They could be maybe less socially competent in social situations or at home or at school, right? So because those are all different skills that we have to learn how to adapt and how to use them, right? There's certain rules that we have at home. Then there's certain rules in society at the park, or, when playing soccer, or when playing in recess, right? These are all different. So are they able to transition and adjust to the different places where they're at? And often they're less successful in school, that we show more difficulty in learning, that they're less productive in the classroom. And then we'll see an increase also of somatic, physical responses if we see that at school, because all of it is interconnected. We're not separated, oh, this is just the one part of my brain and one part of my emotions. No, all of it is connected. Sometimes a big ball, messy ball of emotions, and you have to kind of try to figure out on this messy ball of emotions, which one is it? So just start with one. That's my advice. Because then sometimes we, either as an educator or as a parent, we want to know, well, I need to know which one to start with. Just start with the one that you're able to fix, start low, and then go up higher. Sometimes it's helpful to create like a fear ladder, and sometimes I call it a bravery ladder, depending on what language is helpful for the kiddo. And they can create their own ladder, which is the thing that they fear the most, and then you go down to what they fear the least. And then you can ask them, okay, what's going to be helpful to start with the first one? What do you think you can do? So now I'm going to have the kiddo tell me what they think they can do instead of me telling them. And as they go through their bravery ladder, often if they kind of go halfway, some of the other ones have already fallen off because they feel that level of competence and they are doing it. Yes, now I'm building that confidence and that self-esteem, and yeah, okay, I can do it. I did it before. I think I can do it again. And then eventually they'll get over the big one and, whew, I did that. Yes, you did, right? You came up with your own ideas, what your fear ladder is, and you start working on instead of avoiding and not feeling. All right, so I like visuals. So this could be a helpful one just to kind of remind you what do I need to say when I see my child being anxious? I'm here. That's the biggest thing that we all need from each other. We need to be seen and that our emotions are valid and that we can share them together. So sometimes I'm just here with you. I don't have to fix it with my mouth trying to say nice things. No, I'm here, right? And sometimes it's helpful to validate. It's okay to feel like this. And then it's helpful to ask them what's happening in your body, because anxiety is such a physical, right? Sometimes they don't know what they're thinking. They just are feeling. And then you can ask them an invitation. Can you tell me whatever, right? Whatever it is. And then engage them to figure out a plan together. Instead of it being your plan, have them help you. And so I don't know, all my money from grad school and all my last 5 years of getting licensed, my most helpful statement is what else? Because kids will start with one thing and then they'll kind of stop sharing. So you just wait, just kind of go, what else? It gives them a space that they don't feel rushed and they just can keep on thinking, oh, what else? And I don't know what it is about that phrase. I just feel it's magic gold and kids just keep on talking. So I will freely give you my magic sentence that, I don't know, it works for adults too, but I love it with kids. So, all right, that was, and Winnie the Pooh is one of my favorites. So how do you spell love, says Piglet. Winnie the Pooh says, you don't spell it, you feel it. So we do have to sometimes just kind of share what we're going through. Right, let's stop sharing.
Thank you, Kiki. This has been awesome. I know just listening to you and have, over the last couple of years getting to know you, it's her little 2-word phrases that really are impactful with kids and giving them time to talk and just validating how they're at. So do you have those of you parents, a lot of you are parents that I'm looking at the names here. Give Kiki a situation that you're dealing with and how do you deal with it? I know Robin talked about her son with the, how many days until school starts, and he's just building up his anxiety by doing that. And so ask some questions. It's free. You got a chance for
I'm not charging you.
You don't ask, I'm going to call on you.
I don't want to hog the free time. So if there's other parents that want to chime in, there's so many questions, but I guess one thing that stands out for me is advice for me as a parent, because I myself, when my kids are feeling anxious, I'm feeling anxious. And I know I have a hard time. I mean, as I'm watching your presentation, I've got little nuggets I've jotted down or things, little tools. I think I'm going to try that. But if I'm honest with myself, I don't always have the patience.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I'm an old school mama, so I don't know how to do things the way that I know I could and should. I don't always have the patience, A, and then B, I really am absorbing my children's emotions.
Yeah.
So as a parent, any advice to us on how we can regulate our own situation so we ourselves
All right.
don't do
Let me
that.
show you my favorite example, and Kim has seen this one before. All right, so this is the brain. And this is the same for all of us, kiddos, adults, all of us, right? And I have the thumb on the inside. So if you want to teach your kids, it's helpful for them as well. So when we get dysregulated, this part of the brain, this is the prefrontal cortex, where we do the thinking, the reasoning, right? All the major thinking, like what's happening, when is school happening, right? When the amygdala, which is on the inside, when that gets overwhelmed, the prefrontal cortex flips its lid. Can't no longer think any of those logical thoughts. Now the amygdala is firing, fight or flight or freeze. So what does that look like in kids? Fight, behavior issues, talking back, aggression. Flight is avoidance. I don't want to talk about it, right? Freeze is also, I don't want to talk about it, right? But it could also be then picking on other kids. So it always comes out in behavior for kids, right? So when you notice that out of nowhere, they're showing behavior, you just want to either distract, you move yourself physically, your face away from them. You just start being busy with something on the counter. Give them a moment to do whatever they're doing. It's called active ignoring in working with behavior with kids. And you have no time as you move your body and your face to do your breathing. So even if you have to sit there as your face is over here, right? They're still talking, yapping at you. You can do your grounding, right? What am I seeing in my kitchen? Or, hey, yeah, Kiki said just 5 deep breaths, right? Because as you do that, you're not saying anything that could hurt yourself or your kiddo. Because often when we're dysregulated, we say stuff that afterwards we're like, oh, could I say that? And we're so hard on ourselves, right? Give yourself that time to just not talk until you know when the prefrontal cortex is back. Usually our mind says, wait, what's going on? What was happening? That's your way to know, oh, I'm back again. So often what I've done in session with parents and kiddos, I explain this, and then sometimes I tell them it's helpful to show the other person a signal. Like, hey, mom is right here. That helps you. Now you're showing, you're modeling what that emotional regulation looks like. We are all dealing with emotions. You are, and so am I. Sometimes we think as parents, we have to show them that we're perfect. No, we're not. Right? And often I've seen kids, they start doing the same thing. Hey, mom, I'm here. Because what do we do as parents? Our kids have flipped their lids. We're here. So now we're like talking to each other like this. That doesn't work either. Right? So it's helpful as we both understand what's happening with each other and within ourselves. You need to then also just create some space for you, or just say, you know what, mom is feeling kind of just overwhelmed right now. There's a lot that we just said to each other, so I'm just going to sit over here for a few minutes. What do you want to do for a few minutes? And if they're still going to go like, you're like, I'm not going to engage. I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to go do something like, okay, yeah, let me open up my mail. I'm just going to let them do their thing. And they always kind of fizzle out, right? And then you can ask them, right, let me know when you're ready. And now you try to have your tone back that you've collected yourself. See a lot of nodding, Robin. Does that kind of help?
Good stuff. Yes. For my boys, they are the flight version. We have really no behavioral issues. Well, I shouldn't say none, but for the most part, I am struggling to get it out. And I get frustrated with that. I lose my patience. Like, talk to me. So
make it fun. Make it fun. So what is something that they're into?
Outdoors and animals and motorcycles and video games and football and lizards. Yeah.
Sometimes it's helpful to externalize it. So that's why I have my thingies up here. And I'll be like, for younger kids, even for older ones, I might go like, all right, so if you don't want to talk, I'm going to have a conversation with Mr. Frog here. So I know that you're upset with the first day of school. I know it's hard, isn't it? So as I'm doing this, they're going to be like, whatever, right? I'm like, I know, whatever, right? So I'm just going to repeat whatever they say. So eventually it's going to bother them so much. Either they're going to walk away, they're like, put that stupid thing away. You're like, okay, well, would you like to talk to me instead? Just matter of fact, right? So I'm going to try to do things to kind of catch them off guard. That's the biggest thing. If you have flight kids, they'll be like, wait, what? Right? If I can catch you off guard, because usually they ask big things when you're distracted, right? When you're doing something, they won't go, hey, mom, let's sit down and have a talk,
Yeah.
right? It'll come when you least expect it, right? When you're driving or you're busy and they'll have all these questions. You're like, wait, what? Like, what? Like, I'm not prepared for this. So it's kind of like you have to do the same thing to them in a fun way.
Right. Right. Okay. Good stuff. Lots of good stuff.
Now, Rachel, is it all right if I pick on you? I think if my memory serves me right from last, it was just last week when we had the conference. I think you're a grandma, right?
Yes. Hi. I'm the grandma, and what was the question again?
How can I help you?
Well, I think you're systematic to deal with the things. Now, of course, you know, my son is 32 years old. He's all grown up, and he's father of two of my grandson. And I was thinking way back when I'm your age and deal with him at, you know, elementary school and high school. I didn't learn this, so I didn't do as you teach us today. But I'm kind of person, I don't get mad. So when he had a bad behavior, yelling, whatever, I basically absorbed. And then I was trying to figure out how to respond it. And the way I did is I turned around and started writing a letter. So I have a lot of mother to the son letters. Because when I write a letter, I have to go just, you know, edit again. So in the process editing, my madness emotion is all edited out. So just trying to figure out, you know, what happened, here's my suggestion, so forth. And that's the way I'm responding, in a way that I'm afraid that if I talk to my son, there's going to be a point that I didn't like his behavior, then I explode. I just didn't like that point. I want to be rational. So that's the way I, you know, respond to my son. Good or bad, I don't know. But he turned out to be a pretty good person. So now now I can use your technique, deal with my little grandson. He's 10 years old. He does have this tempers and anxiety things. He's dyslexic. So some of those things is very helpful. So thank you for the talk.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I can imagine what I'm no feedback. So I'm hearing you say that even if you write it down, it sounds like you still hold the emotions inside. So that sometimes it sounds like that they still then explode after a while. Am I hearing that correctly?
No, after I write the letters, in the process of writing the letters, I pretty much calm whatever the madness I would have. So it's pretty become a rational, my advice, areas I need to apologize because I exploded, you know, and whatever. In a way, that is the way to deal with my own emotion. And when I finish out writing it, I'm calm as can be. And I just want him to realize what I was trying to say and just get that point across. So I don't know whether that's a good approach, but that is the way I usually deal with things. I don't want a confrontation. I don't want to say things that I regret. And then I need to have time to analyze the whole thing. I'm pretty analytical. I need times. So, so I usually end up writing. Send it back.
If you
If you
look
look
back
back
over
over
your
your
time,
time,
would you say that's been helpful? Because I'm hearing a little bit of avoidance on your side as well. So I don't have to engage with what's happening. I take my time to process and think about it. Then I write it down. So I wonder if in that scenario, if you can start changing one thing perhaps with your grandson. And what could that be? What is something? So
Oops.
now
so now
you look at your fear ladder, right? So if your lowest fear is saying something in the moment, because I might say something wrong, right? And I'm hearing that because you care so much for him, right? What's the next fear on there that makes me not want to say anything in the moment? Can I give a little bit of feedback? Can I just say, you know, I recognize what's happening in you, and just kind of leave it at that? And then you do your processing. And afterwards, you can give another little bit of feedback and you do your processing, because that's teaching you, because our kids need to see it from us. So having it on paper is helpful for you, but you're not modeling it, right? What it looks like and how to deal with a confrontation in a family matter. And we make mistakes, right? So I want you to recognize that we all do. We've all made mistakes, right? But we have to model it and show it what it looks like. And you can also tell them this is what it shouldn't look like, right? And that's also modeling. When you make a mistake, to say, I'm sorry, that was not the best way how I handled that. This is how I'd like to do it instead.
That is pretty good observation. You kind of indicate I maybe have that tendency to avoid. Yes, I did before, and during my working careers out the Idaho National Laboratories, I got sent to get a training called assertiveness. Um, that when they promote me to a manager, that's kind of weak points. They recognize that. So, so after that, I usually know where I need to stand up for my right. You know, things need to be set, set, and just say it. So I get in the habit. I say it, and I basically put on the pause. I say, "You're mad. I'm mad. We don't talk. So we'll get back together later." And then I'll do my analysis and do my writing and do whatever I need to do, get this whole things, resolved and so forth. So, but I think that, something learned from you is that you can, it is the skill, and you can joke in the stressful situation, turn the situation around and move on forward. Maybe put a pause after that. That would be okay. For me, definitely, I'm analytical. I need time, so I need to have that humorous pause, if you will, and then that doesn't put a stress, on both sides. So
Yeah. I love that insight. That's wonderful. And humor is the best way to de-stress, right? The crazy situation. And I would love for you to consider, now that you have your grandson, you have another opportunity to try it again, right? With all the things that you've learned for yourself. And that's the awesome thing about being a grandma. Now you can take all the things that you've learned and you did well with your son, and you can continue building on that skill and everything else that you're learning today.
And I think parents, those of you who, your kid is struggling in school and the emotions, have this discussion with the kids' teachers, and maybe teach them the little sign that if my kid goes like this, that's the sign to back off, give me some space so that I can get under control. So I think I used to do that with my kids. I worked with at-risk teenagers, and you got to learn how to read the body language. And the rule in my classroom was, I'd meet them at the door, and if that body language wasn't where it's supposed to be, they didn't come into my room. Everybody else was allowed in, and the two of us stood in the hallway, and I said, okay, spit it out because you're mad at somebody. So yell at me, and then you can come in. And it always worked because we had that communication where I respected where they were at, how they were feeling. So if you can, share that with your children's teachers and give them some tools, because they don't know your child. They don't know what will set them off. Certain words will set them off, and certain, if you get too close to them, I had one, if I even touched them, that set the kid off. So don't touch, so. Yeah, Kiki got some great ideas, and people, we got 3 more minutes. So if you got, here's your chance to get some free advice or free accolades that you're doing something really cool with your kid.
Or maybe you want to share what is working well with your kid, because we want to recognize that you have learned to do some other things really well.
Well, if nobody want to talk, and I'll take 1 minute. Well, I have to do this the materials from one of the institution I took the training for the dyslexic anyway, and it is the card that I have to show to my grandson, and so making spell out the word and then do the spelling. Okay, so I always have to negotiate with that little guy. He's pretty strong personalities, and he's taking the medicine to during the school time to concentrate on so in the summertime we took it off, have a medication break, so his concentration is not there. He's bouncing all over the place, and to get him to do 10 words is like pulling his teeth. He fight, yelling, crying, and all that stuff. And so instead of making sit down at a table like in a classroom setting, he's fighting, he's kicking, and so forth. So he is the one actually tell me how to teach him, that little kid. He said, if you come out on the trampoline, then I'll work with you. So so I was there with him on the trampoline. So we did 1 spelling words, and he was bouncing for about 2 minutes, and then come back, and he was that's an exercise, just like what you're saying. He's actually relaxed much more, and his anxiety and fear and angry, whatever, is all gone. And he finally, gets through this 10 words. It's not very much, but it was a big fight and so forth. So I thought I kind of find a way how to deal with it. And even though I can't put a label like yours and chart, I just know I need to diffuse that things. And maybe this jumping trampoline is the way unconsciously, but it did work. So.
I love that story, and I want to add to that because I too have utilized our trampoline in that same way. It's just a really great spot for my boys to decompress, and so when I get on there with them, it's like they're so excited it just takes us to a different place to be able to actually connect. We enjoy some time on it. My son that's severely dyslexic, we will also practice words where he'll bounce them out as he's jumping. But I've also used the trampoline where we'll sit on it and do breathing exercises like Kiki shared earlier. Smell the flower and blow out the candle, because my boys struggle deeply with severe anxiety, both of them. So I've used the trampoline as kind of just that common place where we can, because they're immediately just happy that mom came to the trampoline. So it's been a really good spot, and it just takes them to a happy place. So we're kind of a clean slate to start some of those fun things. So that was a fun story, Rachel. Good job. Thanks for sharing. Kiki, you're amazing. That was really, really great information. I see
You're
that she's
welcome. I just
posted-
shared my email in the chat. So if you guys have any emails after watching this, or you can ask Kim, but yeah, you're welcome to shoot me an email.
And did you say, Kiki, that you are going to be able to share that presentation? And did you have a handout as well, or?
Yeah, I'll save it as a, I forget how I did it last time. I think as a PDF. So, and I'll send some of the attachments that I included in there. So I'll send all that to Kim and she can forward it to everybody.
Okay,
Great.
that's what we'll do. We will send out an email with a link to this recorded webinar and the attached slideshow presentation with any attachments Kiki shares. So we will get that out to everybody that registered to attend this. And thank you so much, Kiki. Thank you. Anyone
It was my
else?
pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Zadel, for bringing us Kiki and making this happen.
Oh, thank you. I mean, once we met her, it was like, whoa, this gal is great. So that's why I have no trouble calling her my adopted daughter. She's awesome.
Your
I'm
family's
glad to
lucky
see-
to have you.
I'm
You've got a
glad
lot
to
of great
receive that.
synergy.
Yeah, it's been great since we connected. So I'm so glad I was able to be here. And if you guys need me again in the future, glad to help and support any way that I can.
Great. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And we do have a webinar again next week. This was the first of a two-part series. So tonight, of course, was addressing anxieties. And next Wednesday evening is a webinar on how to advocate for your child in the public school system. We have an attorney friend who also is a Decoding Dyslexia state leader, who is a fierce advocate for children with dyslexia in our public schools. And she's going to share with us some ways to ensure that your kiddos are being supported at school. So we hope to see you next week. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.